Standing up in McKinney. This is According to Callus, episode 723, coming to you on the 19th of February, the year of our Lord, 2025. And today we're going to talk about DOGE and how it's a feature, not a bug. Before we get there, let me remind you the thing I need most from you right here, right now. I need you to go like, share, subscribe to this here program. Wow. That's what happens when you eat before you talk. Join me on the social media of your choice. That's right. I have a page and a group over at Facebook. I'm a pro at Gab. I drop in at MeWe, and I even occasionally will show up over at X. And wouldn't you know it, you can still find my show over on YouTube. That being said, you can help me out, because I got to be honest, I'm getting shadow banned, and you can't complain. It's just the way it is. That being said, we're going to continue on, marching on, making the best of what we've got, and hey, you can join me. I told you how. Take the time. Put in the effort. Come on, it's all of 2 minutes of your time. And if you're feeling particularly froggy, feel free to rate and or review this program on your podcatcher of choice. Okay, here we go. On with the program. DOGE, right? Department of Government Efficiency. First, let me just say, I've heard all the stories. I've heard the background. I've heard the hysteria from some quarters. I've heard the more reasoned explanations than others, and I got to tell you, frankly, I just don't care. Margaret, I just don't care. No, seriously though. Whether you love or hate the guy, Elon Musk is doing us all a solid, right? Now, I'm not certain that I trust the guy. In fact, let's put it this way. I don't trust the guy. For whatever reason, Donald Trump trusts the guy to do this thing for him. The fact that they've got a few genius-level nerds, for lack of a better term, chomping in these computer systems and getting us all this information and data is quite frankly exciting. Long overdue, mind you, and it's encouraging. Now, look, I'm not asking you to believe everything and anything that's put out by anybody, even myself, right? I always tell you, if something sounds wrong, you're not sure, you should go double check me. You should always independently come to your own conclusions. I've said quite frankly that, I'm going to get things wrong from time to time. The show is my opinion, my understanding of things. By definition, it's called According to Callus. Notwithstanding some people's reservations of where I'm coming from, I've always been upfront and honest about that. So, let's look at what it is that DOGE has been doing and why it's a good thing. It's been going into these places that have had unfettered access to taxpayer money with little to no oversight. And the oversight that they did have was bought and paid for by the establishment oligarchy that runs our country. So in other words, there was no oversight. They're investigating the connections of the money, and they're putting it all out for everybody to see. Now look, you can say that they're cherry picking. You can say that they're exaggerating. Okay, fine, maybe. I don't believe you, but let's just say you're right. Again, I say, so what? Did they find this stuff? Did they track it down? Did they point out what is going on? As a matter of fact, I heard one of the things, well, this could hurt Republicans too. And again, my answer is, that's a feature, not a bug. If you're a dirty Republican, my distaste for you is even more so than the dirty Democrat. Because you pretend to be a good guy. Whereas the Democrats, they're at least open about what they are, right? I want to chase all these people out. I want them to sweat it. I want them to know we're watching. That we the people are tired of getting the foot on our neck, metaphorically, and in some cases, in real life. The other thing that DOGE is going through is they're detecting where the problems are. Whatever algorithm, whatever software they're using, and again, I don't get it. I don't need to know. There are forensic geniuses out there that can trace all this down, and I'm going to tell you, they're detecting the bad guys. They're detecting the fraud. They're finding all these money laundering operations. I mean, just consider all the multi-millionaires that we have in Congress for a job that they make $140,000 a year. Well, let's say it's $300,000 a year. Whatever. The cost associated with having a home in D.C. plus your home, district that you're supposed to be representing, I'm certain they're not exactly netting out $200,000 when all is said and done. I imagine that they're doing well to break even. So, I mean, they have their own rules, right? They can do their own insider trading. They're exempt from that. And is it any wonder why they're all fabulously rich? And of course, then there's the mystery book deals. Again, I don't begrudge somebody for doing well. I don't begrudge somebody for becoming wealthy. That's great. But when you're doing it from robbing other people, from taking taxpayer money, from dirty deals, that's a problem. And that's the kind of stuff they're detecting. Again, catching Republicans is not a bug, it's a feature. Now, the other thing they've been doing is they've been reporting back to us what they're finding. Now, I know there's a lot of weeping and gnashing of teeth that you can't trust these people, that Elon is not trustworthy, that these people have no oversight. No. They are the oversight. That's the whole problem. The oversight that we had was bought and paid for decades ago. These people are all part of the machine. They don't do anything to protect us, we the people. We have a window here. Maybe it's 6 months. Maybe it's 6 weeks. Maybe it's 6 years. Well, it won't be 6 years because Trump is gone in 4. But we have a window here where we can right some of these wrongs. We can readjust things. We can get these things done. I would love nothing more than for all this to come crashing down around the people that have been robbing us. And I don't care if it's Catholic Charities. I don't care if it's, Christianity Today. I don't care if Big Eva gets defunded. I don't care if, all that overseas nonsense gets defunded. I don't care if USAID has hundreds of thousands of people that are out of work. That's not my problem. You've been stealing from us, we the people. There was no conversation. There was no determination and we're going to put this money to it. They just did it. And they thought we wouldn't notice. All this stuff is being reported. It's being put out in the sunlight. Now look, maybe there are plenty of legitimate things that were being done by USAID that are worthy of putting back in place. Okay, fine. I'm willing to hear it out after we finish the purging process. Allegedly, there are a bunch of people that were let go from, Panmex, wherever they deal with nuclear weapons. Now, I don't know if that was true or not. I really don't. I suspect there was a lie because we all know the media is very good about lying about pretty much everything. So, is it true? Is it false? I don't know. Or they may be potentially on the chopping block and somebody said, oh, wait a minute, before we do that, do you know what those guys do? Yeah, let's rethink that. I completely get that. I understand how that happens. And when they talk about these people being fired, most of them are taking deals to retire. And they're getting 10 months worth of pay to go disappear. I don't know about you, but I'm going to guess. I'm just going to take a wild guess here that 90% of these jobs that are disappearing in D.C. probably don't do anything that benefits us, we the people. They're not a value add to our society. 90%. The fact that 96% of federal employees were able to do whatever it is they were doing from at home and never even going to the office speaks to that. The fact that a number of these people had second jobs, that they were able to do other full-time jobs while they had this full-time job from the U.S. government, should speak to that. But again, maybe you don't believe it. Maybe you think it's an exaggeration. All of that, I understand. I get it. I don't want you to take anything at face value. But I need you to understand, These things need to be called out. They needed to be investigated. That we needed to find them, to detect them. And we definitely need to report them. That we, the people, need to know what's going on. Most of this stuff is being done, quote unquote, in our name, or quote unquote, for us. Let me ask you, do you feel like anything that's happened in the last several decades has been legitimately for we the people? That we the people have gotten a net positive out of it? And if you do, why? Can you give me an example? I'm all ears. I could tell you there were a number of things that were passed that were supposedly for our benefit, supposedly were a net positive, but in the end they led to our destruction, or at least a negative outcome for a good chunk of people, the majority of people perhaps. But you've got to be honest. You got to be honest. We have to be willing to have these conversations. Again, what are all the things we're watching play out right here in real time? The corruption, the malfeasance, the abuse of power, the robbing of we the people. Now, you can hate Trump. I don't think you have a rational reason to do that unless you're either a crazy leftist, a socialist, or just a hard sell progressive that just can't stomach anybody that challenges your status quo. But he's delivered. He went and said, I'm going to do these things, and he's doing them. He brought Elon along for the ride. Now look, again, not going to defend who this guy is. Quite frankly, I don't care. He's doing a specific task given to him by the commander-in-chief, by the president of the United States. Go do these things. See to it. Make it happen. I don't want the guy to be my priest. I certainly wouldn't want to have him around any teenage daughters I might have. But that being said, I don't care. He's got a job to do. He's not running anything other than that one thing. And if that upsets you, if that bothers you, let me ask you, how many of these other dirty people that we've been telling us how to live our lives are still in office? I mean, the fact that you got Mitch McConnell, I think that's the right guy. God forbid I get the wrong one. Yes, the senior senator from Kentucky, worried about the fact that we're going to tariff China. Yeah, you know who this guy's wife is? What she does? How is that not a conflict of interest? I mean, and then you got another guy in Congress that's did a little bang bang with Fang Fang, a Chinese spy, mind you, and he's still on the Intelligence Committee? Really? I mean, look, again, we live in a world of confusing things, of contradictions. Nothing's perfect. Nothing's going to be clean and easy. I get it. I really do. The fact that noted tennis player, lesbian, I'm going to just say liberal, because I don't have a better way to describe her, Martina Navratilova, is apparently grateful that President Trump said, hey, you know what? If you're a dude, you shouldn't be playing in women's sports. And she called out the fact that the Democrats refused to do what they should have done years ago. I mean, look, if you're going to pretend that you love women, that you protect women, you're going to pretend to say that women are equal, well, we know they're not all equal 100%. We just know it. Equal before the law, perhaps, but not on a playing field. You got to acknowledge the reality between the sexes. And I mean, she was one of the best to play tennis, especially in her day. And she's like, yeah, this is a mistake. We shouldn't do this. And I imagine if you were to talk to all the highline pro players of all the female sports, they would say the same thing if they're being honest. But why did it take the Donald to get this done? It would seem to be plain as day simple to anybody out there that's got, I don't know, 2 brain cells. That men and women are not the same. Equal before the law, perhaps. Treated fairly and equally, of course. But they're not the same. Yet, apparently, they were led astray. So I know, look, I want the states to stand up. I want the states to grow a set. I want them to push back. I know that's one of the things we're watching playing out right now. The states suddenly are going to be upset because the Donald's getting things done. Good. Where you been? Where you been for the last, 100 years? You've just abandoned your people. You've done nothing to protect your people. I take that back. They're really good about making sure you can murder unborn children. They're real good about protecting people that came here illegally and live off of the rest of the taxpayers. That's things that they do. They were very good to make sure that you could get your drugs over there on the left coast. But standing up for your people, protecting their individuals, yeah, not so much. Caring about the taxpayers, no, not so much. But maybe we'll get some pushback, and a correct pushback, right? The federal government is to be limited in what it can do to those things that were actually given to them. Perhaps the DOGE team will spur enough pushback that will get back some federalism. Perhaps some of these actions will cause the Congress to get off their butt and rein in what can be done by executive order. Now, look, I'm not entirely comfortable with rule by executive order. I don't want an elected king, but in this instance, the guy's doing good work, some would say God's work, as, our elected president, by forcing these things through executive orders to other executive branch organizations. They all answer to him because it's in his branch. Congress could have defunded this stuff years ago. The judges could have said, yeah, that was unconstitutional for that thing to exist years ago. It just doesn't matter. And then the whole issue of impoundment, it's a real thing. Yeah, Congress allocated the funds, but I'm just not going to spend it. That's happened before. It's permissible. It's understood. Federal judges can make their opinions known, right? Their judgments made, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's binding to the state if that law was a federal law that was never, ever approved by the Constitution, never a delegated power, but the states don't act like that. So maybe an overreaction to some of the things coming out of DOGE is to strengthen the resolve of some of those states. And again, that's not a bug, it's a feature. Perhaps the Congress will get off their backsides, especially if we can purge some of the dead weight, the crooks, the criminals that infest D.C. get chased out. Now, part of me would be just fine with a reconciliation plan. You just take your money and go home, and you never, ever again stick your nose into other people's business. I could maybe wrap my head around this. There's a part of me that thinks retribution would be even better. Right? Send them back to their home district after you strip them of all their money that they stole and tell them to go get a real job. Oh, and by the way, you have to face the people that you've been fleecing for a decade or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. I'd be just as well okay with that. And I don't know what the outcome's going to be. Wishful thinking, perhaps. Some of these governors that are so bold on paper that do nothing. I mean, if you want an example about a guy that was a paper tiger, look no further than the former Vice President, Mike Pence. He folded like a cheap suit. He didn't protect your kids when he had the chance. Now, why Trump would pick that chump, I never understood. I mean, look, he had a good reputation at the time. We believed it, but he showed himself to be the coward that he is. Now, maybe J.D. Vance isn't the next president waiting. Don't know. Don't care. Right now we're on, the first month of 4 years of the Donald Part 2? Let's let this play out. Right now, all the right people are pissed off. All the right people are worried. Everybody that is worried and complaining, that's somebody you should have been keeping an eye on a long, long time ago. And again, Trump's not innocent. Trump's not perfect. I suspect he's coloring right on the edge of the lines, and perhaps even outside of some of those lines. But at this point in time, I'm good with that. I want to see what comes of it. I want to see what the net positive is. I want to see if we actually gain. I want to look forward to perhaps getting a dividend where they say, you know what? We don't need to take all your money this year or next year. We found all this waste, fraud, where your elected officials were abusing you and your paychecks for far too long. As a matter of fact, rather than setting, I don't know, Venezuelan invaders there, we're going to send the former congressman that ripped you off, that lied to you, that abused the Constitution, that violated their oath. We're going to send them over to Gitmo. We're going to investigate them and their families. We're going to sort out what exactly happened and who knew what and when. We're going to turn the tide on what you have watched me go through for the last, I don't know what, Donald's been under the microscope for, 8-10 years now at this point? We're going to return the favor. Now, if they're innocent, they're innocent. They'll be proven so and we move on. If they're dirty, then they pay the consequences. They face the wrath of the people they ripped off. And if they're just traitors, right? If they sold us out, maybe they face harsher consequences. Who knows? That's what the courts are for. That's what the military tribunals are for. That's the whole function of this. Let it play out. Let's see what's what. I mean, everybody just sat silently while we had legit political prisoners for darn near 4 years. For some of them, it was 4 years. They were denied their rights. They were abused. And I think they should be compensated for that loss. And I think that all the prosecutors and the agents that were involved in this mockery of justice ought to face consequences as well, and they shouldn't be able to claim I was just following orders. That did not work in 1946, and it sure as heck shouldn't work now in 2026. That's the time I'm guessing they might actually get around to those prosecutions, by the way. The best thing that could ever happen is if we'd have a purge of all the dead weight and criminals that infest D.C. and the state houses across the entire country. Now, maybe that's wishful thinking. Maybe that's just a step too far. Maybe that's an outlandish goal. But honestly, with DOGE, anything is possible. They're talking about perhaps putting in a DOGE system in the state of Texas. The great state of Texas. Yes, I'm fantastic. I'm all for it. Who does it? How? When? I don't know. But I'd like to see it. I would love to see it. It's funny how all these things happen down in Austin that we never really know about. All these things that magically occur because the very people that we sent there to represent us routinely sell us out. The very people that are supposed to be on our team leading the charge to protect our liberty, to protect Texas, seemingly are only worried about one thing. And it ain't you and I. So as we watch, we observe this playing out, just remember, all the things that are happening, they're not bugs. They're a feature. Kudos to the folks over at DOGE. I wish you well and Godspeed. And this is that rare episode where almost everything is federal related. I just can't help it. I mean, I've been sitting on the sideline wondering how do I address this for a couple of weeks now. I just said, what the heck? Let's applaud them. Let's give credit where credit is due. Now, look, I'm a fair-minded individual. Maybe they got something wrong. Maybe something's incomplete. Maybe they misunderstand something because of whatever. Prove it. Put up or shut up, right? So we used to tell people that complain about candidates, put up or shut up. Tell people that are always whining about how something's happening and they don't like it. Put up or shut up. It's not that hard. Not in this instance, right? If there's an if there's an exception to the rule, if there's an exemption you're seeking out for something that was going on, then prove your point. Let's see it. Bring it in the light of day. And with that, this has been According to Callus, and I will see you on the other side.
Wanted. Young men to rebuild Western civilization. Must be unafraid of pain, blisters, intellectual rigor, and a lifetime of long shifts with swords and shovels, digging ditches, repelling invaders, and reading stacks of books taller than their fathers. Must be impervious to manipulative women of all sorts, giggling virgins, cyber skanks, and even full cauldrons of Karens or hand-wringing clergy, but always seeking to hear and heed the words of Lady Wisdom. Immune to the leadership of hypocrites and LARPing online masculinitats, unaffected by abusive authorities, petty professors, and all brokers of official respectability. Willing to hoist the Jolly Roger and Johnny Cash's favorite finger whenever faced with idolatry. Long-suffering joy and determination required. Must be willing to dwell among the tombs and graves of the long dead, seeking truths that cannot die. Exhaustion guaranteed. Conflict guaranteed. Mortality guaranteed. New St. Andrews College. Liberal arts for the undaunted.